Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. You are watching the Camper Report Live. We have a new guest today.
Dude.
Welcome, everyone. We are back. It's been a while since I've done a show. It's been a while since I've done a show with anybody. It's been like 2 weeks. Today I have my brother, Joseph Kamperman, on the show. We have we're going to shred our teams today. We're going to let nothing back. We're going to have, I'm sorry. We were 10 minutes late. We'll
make up for it.
But we're going to shred our teams. We're going to let nothing back. Every storyline in the NFL we're going to talk about today. How are you doing? This is going to be so fun. We're going to be here for the next 7 topics. I think we have like 6-7 topics to talk about. So
yeah, let's do it. No, I'm doing great. I hope you are. It's been, I'm trying to not get gray hairs from the way both my fantasy football season and, I'm starting to care more about that because the Eagles are just not giving me much to cheer for. But yeah, I'm doing great. And before we get started, we got to give
the
man state-bound cross country. You got to give Benjamin a shout out.
I do state cross country, and it was the first time my team had made it to state in 3 years, and I got this hat for my cross country team. It's an LA hat, but I got it at the mall engraved with at the back state and then bound on the other side. So you guys can't really see it that well. But so
but
tribute hat.
Everyone give claps in the chat. And Benjamin, he just wanted to try to be as fat as me. And so he had to live up to the hype. So no, congratulations, Benjamin. It's an amazing achievement.
I know. It is a great honor. So the first topic that we have, a team that the AFC just absolutely, they were supposed to be one of the best teams in the AFC this season. And, this team was, we were expecting Patrick Mahomes to be Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs,
Super Bowl
the
bust,
Chiefs,
essentially.
Basically. The Chiefs have issues on both sides of the ball. Basically, what do you make of it? It's crazy to think, Patrick Mahomes, so un-Patrick Mahomes type, it's crazy. So what do you make of this situation?
One of the things, just let me know if my camera goes off or if you can't hear me, because this is the first time syncing my beats with my MacBook. So,
okay.
Anyways, when you sent over this question, I'm like, this is a tough one because you could come at it from so many aspects. I think to narrow it down and to try to, digest it, every team has a level of expectations, regardless if they want to say, I don't want to hear because we're going to talk about Eagles in a minute, but they said no expectations coming into the season. There are expectations with every team coming into the season, whether it's a team expectation, player expectation. That's just we as fans, the media, and teams set themselves. The expectations coming out of the Super Bowl was, and I do believe that at the time they were right expectations, the Chiefs were a better team than the Buccaneers. They're going to the Super Bowl. They're going to win the Super Bowl next year. And people can argue, but those were, in hindsight, the expectations, because the expectations was Tom Brady beat Mahomes because of insane defensive play, and it's Tom Brady. But if they meet anyone else in the playoffs, and that's why there was this, will we see a a Buccaneers versus Chiefs again Super Bowl? Because the reality is, when you look at those two teams, people only use Tom Brady as an excuse. And of course, that's a big excuse because Tom is the GOAT and he's an amazing quarterback, as painful as it is for me to say this, but those were the expectations coming into the season. Well, I think the Chiefs took that and they said, okay, what won us games? What won us the Super Bowl the year prior? Reed, hella coaching. Reed's a great coach, but he finally did the right thing and coached a proper football game in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And the last 3 years he's been good in the playoffs, but that was his kryptonite in Philly. Those were the criticisms where Reed doesn't coach well in the playoffs. He'll be a 14-2 team, and they'll act like a 2-12 team in the playoffs. And those were the complaints with Eagles fans. One of the reasons why I believe that they ended up leading towards a departure, which is now making the Eagles look stupid. But those were the two things where Mahomes is the greatest quarterback potentially to ever play the game. Give him 20 years and he'll have more Super Bowls than Brady. I don't care, but those were the expectations. And they did it. They missed them. What they did is they said, look, and I agree. I see where they're coming from. And I don't want to dwell on this too much, but they said, okay, what was our issue in the Super Bowl? Well, they had lost 2 of their starting offensive linemen. And I think actually they may have been down 3. It was their left tackle and then Duvernay.
They were
which
down
is
3 because it was Fisher. I think it was their
Fisher, left tackle.
Guard or something.
Well, Duvernay. I think it's Duvernay, right? The right guard that sat out.
Yeah, and then I think their center had to start at left tackle. I think their center had to start.
They had a shuffled offensive lineman going into the Super Bowl. And that wasn't even like, oh, we've played all playoffs. They're just getting – no, he was starting his first game for the Chiefs in I think a long time. So I didn't go that in depth in research, but the bottom line is they came out of the season and they're like, the only reason why we lost the Super Bowl is because of our offensive line. So I actually did some calculating, and they had 6 draft picks last year. In addition to them getting Joe Thuney and the Baltimore Ravens offensive lineman, the name's slipping me now. In addition to them getting those 2 guys, they drafted 2 offensive linemen who have actually been almost better than their free agent acquisitions. But they draft 2 of their 6 players are offensive linemen, which I could arguably say, okay, you go out and you get 2 offensive linemen in free agency.
Yeah.
Is that a need? It may have been. And trust me, they were good picks. But of those 6 players, 2 of them were defensive players, and they lost defensive players. Yeah. There's your issue right there.
Their defense is awful.
Well, but this is the issue. They focused, in my opinion, and this of course is I think a commonly shared opinion, but I come at it from a little bit of a different angle. They basically thought, okay, we don't really care. They had to be thinking this, or they're just not a good organization, and I do believe they are. I think they had to be thinking, we'll score 40 points a game, and we'll outscore teams. Doesn't matter how bad our defense is. All we need is 2 or 3 stops a game, which is pretty manageable if you're having 10 or 12 drives a game. Mm-hmm. And they're not getting that. They're losing the time of possession battle. They're losing, and of course, Mina Kimes, I think that's her name. She's a new analyst. She was saying, well, their offense is fine. I don't think their offense is necessarily bad.
It has problems, I think.
You're gonna have off days, so that's sort of my.
The problem the thing is the defense never was that good. But the problem with the Chiefs was in previous years was that Patrick Mahomes covered it all up. I mean, you could say this. You remember this. The Chiefs offense never, even the year that they won the Super Bowl against the 49ers, it never was that great. I'm sorry, the defense never was that great.
Well, yeah,
the offense was so good. It was so elite that it could cover up any of the defense's mistakes. The defense really was never that good.
I don't disagree with you. I think you're right. I think the issue is football, the beauty of the sport, and I think we've said this in previous podcasts, the beauty of the sport is, unlike basketball, where a guy like LeBron James in his prime, we won't get to what's right now, but in his prime, LeBron James could come into a team and alter the whole team. It's a little different with football. The offense and the defense feed off of each other. And the issue is they've got 2 stars on defense. They've got Chris Jones. I almost said Chandler Jones. Chris Jones, and they've got Tyrann Mathieu. Brashad Breeland, I believe, was their cornerback.
Tyrann Mathieu's been out, though.
Well, I know, and so that's what I was going to get to. Brashad Breeland, I believe, was their corner when they won the Super Bowl. Him. I believe Steven Nelson also was their corner when they won the Super Bowl. The biggest thing about it is, if your defense doesn't have to have the pressure to get a sack or get an interception every play because your offense is so good, then I think they feed off of that, and there's added momentum. But the issue is this: both Chris Jones and Tyrann Mathieu, who are not only their best defensive players, but they're defensive leaders, they both haven't been able to stay on the field this season. I think Chris Jones has missed at least a game, if not more. Tyrann Mathieu, I believe, has also been banged up. So, and I've not unfortunately watched as much football like outside of the Eagles, but this is just from what I've seen and what I've listened to. Fantasy football does an excellent job getting you up to speed on all these things, because and maybe not so much defensively, but you do find a lot out about players who you would normally not see on game day. So we're watching. So
I have
It's a
some
dumpster
stats
fire.
to throw at you, though.
Throw
Okay.
me some stats.
This is against a pretty bad Tennessee defense, right?
Yep.
55 total yards in the first half, okay? Derrick Henry had more passing touchdowns than Patrick Mahomes last game. Okay, this isn't all Andy Reid's fault, and it isn't all the defense's fault, and this is why I think this team is so bad is pretty bad this year, is because not only is their defense is bad, their offense, Patrick Mahomes, 20 for 35, okay? No, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception against a bottom of the pack Titans defense, okay?
But
that is on Patrick Mahomes, and he's been doing this last few games.
I do agree. I agree that he's not. He's and I don't know how long we want to dwell on this, because I know this could turn into like multiple
20
hour
minutes of
but the bottom line is the way I look at it is it is partially Patrick Mahomes' fault, but I do go back to some of the defense, and the reason why I say this is because if you are playing from behind, those passing stats can look inflated. In fact, Jalen Hurts looks like the next, Tom Brady, and I'm trying to think of the next Aaron Rodgers, because of he's throwing so many passes. He's gonna get 400 yards, and then you start looking at his completion percentage, and you're like, this is not good. But in hindsight, when I decided to look at their schedule, I agree with you, but I also can't fully say that they've had a cakewalk, because their schedule has been tough. The Browns defense is still is a force to be reckoned with. You've got Myles Garrett and a bunch of other people in that defense that's pretty good. You've got the Ravens. That's a good defense. They're a good team. You've got the Chargers. They're also a good team. You've got the Bills. And so really of those teams that they've lost against, because they beat the Eagles and they beat the football team with astounding, like they destroyed them.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
So they destroyed those teams. They barely eked out a win against the Browns team that they really actually should have lost against. But if you look at that, you now go the Bills, the Chargers, the Ravens. Those are all 3 teams that I think
exactly.
are,
their schedule has been pretty hard.
However, with that being said, and this is sort of what it goes back to, with that being said, I don't think that it's just, that's a pass, because good teams beat these type of teams.
And they did that. Those Chiefs beat those type of teams in the past.
And they beat them on the road to the Super Bowl. And the truth is the Titans are a great team because of their running game, and everything feeds off of it. But at the end of the day, 3 points. I know Mahomes got knocked down, was banged out, and came and they decided, because it was such a blowout. But the bottom line is, if it was like a 27-20, I'd say, you know what? It's not their year. Now it's time to worry, because they didn't even put up a touchdown on. I agree, a Titans defense that I don't think is as bad as the stats show, but they're definitely not the Bills or even the Ravens, who have been hit by injuries. My word, and so. It's a mess. And I think really what it goes down to is the reason why, and I'm going to use the Steelers as an example before we transition or more before I have more input. The Steelers have been such a perennial good team. Now, obviously this year is a little different, but then again, they started one because
their old quarterback. We all saw it coming.
They started 1-3, and this is where I fault them, but they started 1-3 and they've won the last 2 games. But with that being said, the Steelers, the issue that I find with them is, the one highlight is they've drafted well. Their draft picks perform. I mean, the Edmond brothers, J.J. Watt's brother, Derek and what's his name? T.J. Watt. Both played. T.J. Watt's obviously the star. But they've drafted really, really well, and they've done a good job drafting. And the truth is, they've relied on Roethlisberger for so long. I think that's been their kryptonite now. But the truth is, they have been a perennial good team because of insane draft picks. I mean, I feel like they can draft a receiver in the 7th round, and he'll be like the next Mike Evans. I mean, it's so with that being said, I think that Chiefs had every opportunity. They didn't have a 1st-round pick because of they gave it to the Ravens this year, but they had every opportunity to be a good team this year. I think that they just, they drafted a linebacker in the 2nd round with the first of the 2 second-round picks. It's hard to know. I don't know what's going on. I think one of the main things that's going on is they relied on Patrick Mahomes, when the truth is, I don't care what anyone.
2 per game.
Well, and the thing is, I don't care what anyone says. Tom Brady is a great quarterback, but look at the team he has in Tampa Bay right now. There's a reason why they've only lost 1 game. And the truth is that one game was against a Rams team, which is also very scary. But look at it. He's got Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, and Chris Godwin. I would kill to have one of those receivers on my roster. And then his defense,
and they got Leonard Fournette for super cheap.
yes. And
like,
the only weakness
cheap.
they have, which is basically not a weakness because their defensive line is so good, is
their
cornerbacks, is their
yeah.
secondary. And it'll be their kryptonite. I tell you this right now. I do not think they're going to the Super Bowl because of issues.
I don't think so either. I do not think they're this.
But
yeah.
We transition all the way from the Chiefs to the Buccaneers, but that's sort of my opinion. If you don't draft well and you focus all on one skill set or all on one side of the ball, whether it's offensive or defense, you can't build a good team. It's a team sport, and defense and offense fit off of each other. And I do believe the root of it is a defensive issue because I don't think the Chiefs' offense is bad. I mean, they've got some playmakers. It's also complacency. Is Reed calling as good of a game? Is he as sharp as he was? Not to go against his age or anything, but is he being complacent in his play calling? But I just haven't watched enough Chiefs game for me to say that's the issue. I
watched the highlights.
Defensively, they're a mess.
I watched the highlights. They were bad. Okay, there were a few mistakes earlier on that really counted that game. Like there were mistakes where they would just have a 3-and-out, or they got an interception early and the Titans just the fumbles were the biggest mistakes for the Chiefs. I think they had the first 4 or 5 drives, they had 3 fumbles. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, the running back, all fumbled. And the Titans were able to capitalize. And now the first quarter and a half, you're looking at the Chiefs all of a sudden being down 20-0.
Oh, yeah. Well, and here's your issue right there.
It was a lot closer of a game if they wouldn't have had those 3 fumbles earlier on.
You can play the would have, could have game. My only issue is this. Good teams are able to have a 3 turnover game and still keep the game close. Where it starts worrying me is where they have 3 turnovers and they can't muster a touchdown. It's definitely, there are some concerns. Now, I would say do not freak out yet. I think that they still have a chance to be a legit contender. However, it doesn't get easier. They have the Giants next week. That's always a game that is, as much as I hate the Giants, they've got the Giants, the Packers, the Raiders, the Cowboys. So they've got 3 of 4 next 4 games are no pushover teams. Then they've got the Broncos and the Raiders. Those are still not pushover teams. Then they've got the Chargers, the Steelers, the Bengals, the Broncos. I mean, this is not an easy schedule. I mean, I would say if I'm looking at this right now, I think they can pull out wins against the Broncos, but that's 2 of their next 10 games that are
they'll definitely beat the Broncos. I think so.
I think they'll beat the Broncos. I think they'll beat the Giants, and I think they'll beat the Giants, the Broncos twice, and I think that they will beat the Steelers. But that's 4 of the next 10 games. If they win 4 of the next 10 games, they're missing the playoffs. So they have to win more than that.
Yeah.
And good teams do have to win more than that. And so I think that's really what I land on. They're just not a good team this year. It's a massive disappointment, but I also think the expectations were so high because they literally thought the only reason why I think they lost the Super Bowl because of offensive line.
2 straight Super Bowls. I mean, fans, I feel like in Kansas City aren't as mad as they would be in San Francisco.
But they should be
because they've had some great seasons.
Oh,
they went to so many Super Bowls.
It's the Patriots fan effect and not the Tom Brady effect. Patriots fans were so happy with just getting to the Super Bowl, with getting to the playoffs after Tom Brady. Tom Brady says, I get to the playoffs, that's a disappointment unless I get to the Super Bowl. There's a difference in the way they see things. Some teams say, I'm confident, and some fans say, I'm great if we just get to the playoffs. I mean, I used to know, we both used to know a Cowboys fan. He said, if at the middle of the season we're 4-4, that's good. For me, that doesn't cut it. I don't want to. I hold my team to too high of a standard because you can't win football games. So, that's a lengthy number 1. But I think we both agree this defense and their offense is just not playing to standard, and there's reasons behind it. So,
real quick, I've never seen this guy in the chat, so welcome, Bolt fan 44. You're a Chargers fan. We have something a little bit to say about your division, a lot.
Yeah, Justin Herbert is an absolute baller, and I called it when he came into the draft. I work with an Alabama fan, and they said Tua's the guy, and I said, you know what? There's something about Herbert. Herbert is my guy.
Yeah.
Herbert is outplayed. Maybe not Burrow this year, but he's definitely had one hell of a season this year. And the last year, of course, was incredible. So, Yeah, he's a good quarterback, and they've got a lot to be happy for, which is cool because they transitioned from Phillip Rivers to Herbert. That's, if anything, an upgrade, especially at later in his career. Phillip Rivers was a good QB though, but yeah.
Yeah.
So
well, okay, real quickly, just another thing, just before we move on, and I'll just real quickly say this. This was the largest deficit that the Chiefs have had since 2016 against the Steelers. So it's pretty crazy.
Well, that shows how good of a team. That's 5 years. Well, I guess it is 2016 season, so 5 seasons. Unreal. So, should they freak out? No. Teams have bad games like this. Look, the Packers didn't show up in week 1, and I do think the Packers are going to be a force to be reckoned with this year, unless COVID gets them. It looks like they're now down 3 of their starting receivers tomorrow night, or no, Thursday night. But and so the bottom line is, I think, it's not time to freak out. But if they don't start, like, they need to win obviously against the Giants, but then they've got a big test against the Packers, and then can they win a divisional game against the Raiders? They've got 3 really hard games. I think they'll win the Giants, but then it starts bad. It's Packers, Raiders, Cowboys. If they lose 2 of those 3 games, season's over. I don't care what anyone says; they can't win for the amount of games they've lost. So they're sitting at But.
So that was a lot of fun. Let's get to our
we seem to care about the Chiefs.
I know, but that team is the most intriguing team this season.
And so that's why they chose to be in the spotlight. The same conversation would be had if Tom Brady was absolutely laying duds in Tampa. Unfortunately, he's not, and they seem to be running over everyone.
So the second one we have is a team that is number 1 in the AFC. The Bengals blew out the Ravens, a very good football team. I mean, the Ravens just blew out the Chargers, who in all of our minds were a top 10 team. Absolutely, and I still think they are.
I have a hot take on this one.
This is like crazy. They blow out the Ravens. Now, I did watch the highlights. Earlier on in that game, close game. I think it was 14-14 earlier on. So the Ravens were keeping up with them. But then the Ravens had 2 turnovers. And just like the Chiefs-Titans game, the Bengals were able to basically run away with that game. Jamar Chase having a blowout, 200 yards. You had, what is it? You had C.J. Ujama, 3 receptions, 91 yards, 2 TDs.
He's crazy. He gets like 2 or 3 receptions and turns them into a touchdown every week.
I know. Jamar Chase, breakout season, 8 receptions, 201 yards, 1 TD. He almost won me. Well, he won me in 1 league, fantasy. He did amazing. And then Joe Burrow had like over 400 yards, 3 TDs, 1 interception. So this was an amazing game for the Bengals. And what do you make of this?
So here's the deal. I'm gonna have a hot take because I know no one's gonna like me for this. I've watched the Bengals for a lot of years. They've been the butt of the NFL and really the butt of the AFC. They would always be able to get to the playoffs and they couldn't do anything. And then of course they fire Marvin Lewis. Andy Dalton goes to the Cowboys, he's now with the Bears. But this is gonna be a hot take. Coming into the season, this was like, I think a lot of people coming into the season, and I'll quickly say this, thought that, gosh darn it, what's their coach's name? Slipped my mind now. They thought that their coach was going to get fired. I think a lot of people thought in midseason.
Zach Martin? Is that his name?
No, Zach Martin is the lineman for the Cowboys.
Never mind.
With that being said, coming into the season, the Bengals, I think a lot of people expected them to fire him before the end of the season because there was so much talent on that team. Zach Taylor, yeah. So there was so much talent on that team that I think a lot of people were like, he's not going to make it. He did something. But look, at the end of the day, Jamar Chase is one of those few guys you get lucky with. CeeDee Lamb came into the draft last year. He checked all the boxes. And I think for some reasons he fell. Jamar Chase checked all the boxes, and he has officially filled all those boxes. But here's where my hot take's going to get. And I know this could start a massive conversation, but I don't think they're as good as they seem. And here's why.
Okay.
I think this is the beginning of what could be a run, but this is who they played. They beat the Bengals. They lost to the Bears week 2. Now, of course, that's week 2.
You mean who?
This is sorry. The Bengals beat the Vikings.
The Vikings, yeah.
In overtime. Now, the Vikings are not a bad team, but they're not a great team. They lose to the Bears by a field goal, which I believe was as the
Yep,
time
remember
expired.
that.
It's week 2. Teams are still shaking off the rust. They beat the Steelers. However, the Steelers are subpar. They beat the Jaguars by a field goal. They lose to the Packers in overtime. And this is where I think things begin to change. So I think that they could be on a run, but I want to wait another two weeks. But this is where it gets difficult. They lose to the Packers in overtime by 3 points. But then they astoundingly destroy the Lions. Now, the Lions are are not a bad team, but they're also, not a good team, but they're also not terrible, but still, that's not, if I say 34-11, I'd expect a team like that to beat them. Where they really made a statement is against the Ravens. Now, like you said, It was close in the beginning, but this is where it's tough. And this is why I'm like, are they legit? I don't know, because it's tough. Their next remaining games are Jets. It's a bad team. They're going to win.
Yeah.
They're going to beat the Jets. Then they play the Browns.
Yeah.
They play the Raiders. So I think if in the next 4 weeks they win 2 or 3 of those 4 games, I am willing to say they are a top 7 team. Right now, it's
so
hard.
You wouldn't put, because my power rankings I have like tomorrow. Would you put them? So you wouldn't put them in the top 5?
It's hard. They're good, and I know people are crazy because they're number 1 in the AFC right now. I don't doubt this team. Their defense is underrated. It is a lot better. Than they thought. And they've got a great team they've got a great quarterback. I think Burrow is their future. I think he's not got as high of a ceiling as Herbert, but I think he'll be a great quarterback. I think Jamar Chase is off the charts. I think they hit a steal. He's also played with Jamar Chase. I don't think it speaks – you can't speak enough on how much when you play with a receiver for I think he played with him for 2 seasons. That's a big deal. So that's like essentially he's got 2 seasons of reps. I think that's why we're seeing Jamar Chase break out. I do believe he's an extremely talented receiver, but I think it's also because he's familiar with the playing style of you got to remember the last time he caught a pass was from Joe Burrow.
That's true.
He skipped out last year. So with that being said, I'm not a Bengals hater. I'm actually extremely happy they're doing well. I think it's best for the NFL because it shows that a team that really doesn't have the greatest organization can do this. I'm just not willing to talk. I'm not willing to yet. Now, look, I will throw crap on my team. I mean, I don't even think we're in the top 20, but it's bad. But yeah, I think we could spend a whole segment on this. So I'll let you sort of have your opinion on or say some more about the Bengals.
I don't have much of one. It's just this team is the biggest
it's shock.
Beginning of the season, we were like, okay, first thing we were like, this team's like 4th in the AFC North
Absolutely.
or whatever it is. 4th or whatever it was.
Even 3rd, maybe. Yeah.
3rd, maybe. But the thing is they have done this team their defense has played way better. Their offensive line actually hasn't been terrible.
Yeah, which is a shock. That was a
worry. The thing is they didn't even run the ball effectively last week with Joe. They only ran it with him 9 times. This was all Joe Burrow's arm. Okay. And so this team shows how lethal. I mean, this Ravens team is, their defense is good. Their secondary is really pretty good. I think they're one of the best secondaries coming in. So if you look at it, this team just had the best passing day with outrunning the ball. And this is the best, one of the best defenses in the league. And so, I
agree with you. I think they're the defense is really what shocked me, and I think that's what's underrated. I see Amin's taking shots at me in fantasy. I mean, I also had I'm on a 2-game win streak. I'm on almost the largest win streak, so I don't want to hear that. I'm coming back. I'm coming back. I know Pinor said Bengals are fortunate that the Steelers are mediocre, especially at QB. The Ravens are relying on Lamar Jackson, and the Browns are dealing with many injuries. Here's the deal. You're going to rely on your quarterback. I do believe the Ravens do rely on Lamar Jackson, but let's be real. What Joe Burrow has done coming off of an injury cannot be said enough. He could actually win Comeback Player of the Year. I don't know if he will because of but the truth is, I mean, he's playing at an insane level, and if I'm not wrong, did he tear his – it's not ACL, was it? Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I mean, dude, what he's doing. I mean, look what happened. Jimmy Garoppolo. This is a good example. I know we're going to rip into the 49ers, but um, but
Sucks.
but Jimmy Garoppolo. Now he's had 2 injuries on the leg, but still, I mean, but yes, so has Burrow. So yeah, we could spend a long time on this. It's the biggest shock of the NFL this year. If someone told me that the Arizona Cardinals and the Bengals, I was high on the Arizona Cardinals coming into this year, but if someone told me
Yeah.
that the Cardinals and the Bengals would be the two top teams, if someone also told me that the top 5 teams per record in the NFL were 5 NFC teams, I would have laughed.
Yeah.
AFC looks so strong. You had the Chiefs, you had the Bills, you had the Browns, you had the Ravens, and none of those guys are even in the top 5 overall record. I think some of them tie, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's it's a good take. You raised the defense. Defense is a big shocker. They also went out and they did what the Chiefs didn't do. They invested in defense. When the truth is that offense could have been invested in more. I mean, they could have
Yeah.
gotten more than just Chase. So they spent their cap wisely. I think they basically gave Zach Taylor a 1 more year, and they said, if you can't do it, we're firing you. I think Zach Taylor just bought himself an extra year, and maybe, hey, he's a young quarterback. Maybe there's still hope for Sirianni. Uh, maybe a young quarterback, maybe it's a quarterback coach. Maybe a young coach like Zach Taylor just needed 2 or so years to grow into his position. So,
Yeah.
but
Okay, well that's good. I mean, yeah, one of the biggest outlier teams that was not on anybody's radar. So let's see what else we got here. What did you see? So we have the Eagles now. Okay, we're gonna start ripping up on it. So don't go, everyone. Don't go for this topic. We're gonna start ripping on the Eagles, 49ers. Just what did you see from the Eagles loss over the Raiders? I mean, I watched the highlights of that game, and let me quickly throw a few stats at you. Derek Carr for
no,
16 passes was 16 for 16, 31 for 34. Okay, 323 yards, 2 TDs, 1 interception. That is amazing. I mean, that's better than amazing. That is like he had an MVP day right there.
oh, this is painful. I'm one of those fans. I try to be faithful. And I am. I mean, I've been a Eagles fan for over a decade, and really, since this is my only team that I've ever liked. But it's a tough time in Philly. We really could spend a whole podcast on this. I'll try to keep it short. I watch every game if I can. I've missed 1 game this year. And 2 games. Technically, I listened to the Falcons game while I was flying back from Italy. On the radio, I got myself some Sirius XM subscription just for that game. I tried to capture it by buying Wi-Fi and trying to watch it on a stream. That didn't work. But with that being said, I've watched all the games, and there's some serious issues here. I think it's so hard to pinpoint. I'm gonna focus on the Raiders here for the first section of my response. Derek Carr's a good QB. I looked at his stats. I think his stats get underlooked, including by me. He's got a completion percentage of the last 3 years. So the first 2 years they weren't great, 58 and 61. It's pretty bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. The last 3 years, he actually had his best year, in my opinion. Oh, really? Completion percentage wise, he had his best year in 2019. 70.4, but then 67 completion percentage. That's not something to be laughed at. Passer rating overall from the last 3 years, 100 in 2019, 101 in 2020, and 101 in 2021. Those are all very good numbers, and those are all QB5 numbers, QB6 numbers. Yeah, Derek Carr's a good QB. I mean, the truth is, a bad QB that's not mentally strong and that's not physically talented could have been completely torn to shreds when John Gruden had his horrible departure 2 weeks ago.
That's true.
Basaccia came along, and he said, you know what? He was good friends with Gruden. Like, the whole team was. Most of them embraced him. I'm not going to get into all the stuff that happened there. It's a real shame. I liked Gruden as a coach. I liked his coaching style. Clearly, he wasn't the man behind the camera that, unfortunately, those things happen, and I don't condone any of the things that went on there. But Derek Carr had an opportunity, and I don't think anyone would have actually batted an eye if Derek Carr would have dropped the last 4 games. If they would have said, you know what, this is just mentally, you rely on a guy for the last couple of years. He gets signed he gets given a portion of the Raiders' ownership in the team and a 10-year contract. Like, you make a commitment to him. Here's your quarterback. He's the guy who's hopefully going to bring you to the Super Bowl. The truth is now they may be a better team off without him, which is crazy to say that. But Bisaccia, if he, and this is where it's tough. No team would ever tries to fire a coach midseason, because if I was listening to a fantasy podcast and it sums it up well, if the interim coach does well, you have to now consider him for the head coaching gig. They're going to have to consider Bisaccia. I think that's how you say his last name.
Yeah,
for the
I don't
coaching
know.
gig.
I didn't even know he was their coach.
He's the special teams coordinator. He's the assistant head coach, and they've
Okay.
won 2 games under him, and they played well. He had 16 completions to start the game until and the truth is, it's funny you said that stat. Guess what? One of those incompletions was an interception. So he absolutely had two incompletions all game. I mean, that's unreal. And he was missing his favorite target, which was a game day scratch that was shocked everyone because he injured it in warmups in Darren Waller. And so going to the Eagles, and I really don't have a ton to say on them. They're not playing good.
Well, yeah, you can take as long as you want.
Well, Jalen Hurts, it's tough. Last year he starts 4 games. He comes into this year and everyone's like, look, he's pretty much like Waruna says, what's with the LA hat? Is it a UCLA Bruins?
Yeah, haha, man. Haha.
But
I know I think you're a Bucks fan, so Warriors, never mind. Whatever it was. But quick backstory, I got it engraved because I made it to state in cross country, so at the back it says state bound. So I wanted to get my favorite team with a memorable season, since this was my freshman season running for state. So my team made it to state, and that's basically it. Yep.
Yeah, so going back to the Eagles, painfully as this is, some people say, look, he's still sort of a rookie. He's technically on his 12th start as of last game. And then the other one says, look, Lamar Jackson started a couple of games, came back the next year and had an MVP season. Then they said, Patrick Mahomes started a couple of games, came back and had a great season. Stop giving him the preferential treatment. There's 2 sides of the coin. The one side says in the 4 starts last year, there was a lot to look positively, but he was not very accurate. That's the one thing that was never, in my opinion, a knock to Carson Wentz. He was accurate. He sometimes missed throws, but I do believe Carson Wentz saw the field well. I think that's one of the things that Hurts is not doing well, is seeing the field well, but that could also be a scheme issue because, for instance, a good example, they had a Boston Scott, I believe, run out to the flat. It was a 3rd down, I believe. Boston Scott does a wheel route to the flat. In game time, I was saying, throw him the ball. Then all of a sudden I thought, he was not completing his wheel route. His wheel route was supposed to end up in the end zone. No, then I watched the replay, and Boston Scott stops at the 10-yard line. He was wide open until the 10-yard line. That's an automatic first down, and Jalen Hurts tries to hit someone for a 20-yard pass or something like that. And when I saw that, it just sort of reinforced I think Jalen Hurts is not a bad QB, but he's not seeing the field well. Nick Sirianni's not helping that. They had a good run game. They were running the ball well, and then all of a sudden Miles Sanders goes down with an injury. Their offensive linemen, 15 offensive linemen shuffles in the last 12 games. Their offensive linemen can't stay healthy. And then you've got Lane Johnson comes back. He's had some struggling with some mental issues, mental illness issues, with depression, anxiety. Heart goes out to Lane, but they did miss him. It's an awful situation. Lane's a really great guy. But yeah, to put it in perspective, you've got your star left tackle you signed before the beginning of the season in Jordan Mailata. He's a great left tackle. He's going to be a perennial, I believe, Pro Bowler for years to come. Maybe not this year, but he will grow into that. And then you've got a great right tackle in Lane Johnson, and you've got Kelsey, who's a mainstay. The dude seems to just be playing on two legs with no arms and somehow can still make the Pro Bowl. He's just an exceptional center. And I'll speak super highly about him. He's the only healthy offensive lineman for a majority of our seasons the last couple of years. And so with that being said, and then all of a sudden you have Johnson goes out, Mailata goes out. You have Dillard playing left tackle, Driscoll playing right tackle. Now, okay, all of a sudden, John Mailata comes back, and instead of coming back to play the position he was paid so much money to play, he now has to slot to right tackle because your first-round pick, who was a left tackle, said that it's hard for him to transition to right tackle. So I would have rather seen one side of the line bad, and okay, the blind side of Hurts would struggle. Dude, and now it's both sides because Mailata's playing, and he's playing at a pretty good level. And so that was a big thing. Now, of course, Mailata goes back to left tackle last week and actually didn't have a very good game.
Yeah.
This is a team that I could get structurally. I believe Howie Roseman is being given too much leeway. I think we're seeing the Pete Carroll effect with Howie Roseman. Pete Carroll is now being in charge of drafting for the last 5 years, and they've drafted not a single Pro Bowler. I was hoping Devontae Smith would break the drought for the Eagles as far as drafted Pro Bowlers. Obviously, Kelsey and Cox have made it, and I think Ertz made it a couple years ago. But as far as the last 5 drafts, we haven't drafted a Pro Bowler either. It's a problem right there. And going back to this, good teams draft well. The Eagles are not a good team right now. They're not drafting well. They're forking out money in the right position. Well, the bottom line is they signed Mailata. That's a good signing. They let go of they trade Ertz. I understand that trade, and I get it. I get that trade. Whether I agree with it or not, Goddard. Hopefully they'll re-sign. But the reality is this: they don't have a veteran receiver other than Greg Ward, who's actually a good veteran receiver. I would have loved to see them go out and even trade for a guy like Randall Cobb. I mean, like somebody who's played the game and who's been successful at some point in his career. Quez Watkins, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Reagor. Quez Watkins and Devontae Smith are going to be special. Verdict still on Reagor. I want to give him another year, even though a lot of Eagles fans quickly want to give up on him. But it's a tough – you see them play football, and they're fundamentally not sound. They're not playing good football. And the bottom line is they're just not disciplined. I mean, and it's painful. It really is painful to watch. It's not been easy to watch them this year. But I'm optimistic Eagles fan because I was with them when they were 4-12. This is not a bad team. They're not being coached well, and they're not being disciplined. And I think
also their defensive line, I don't know,
and that
was
goes to coaching. I have never, and I'm probably gonna have to cut it at this one because I could go on forever on this, but I have, as an Eagles fan, watching the last 3 years, I've watched almost every single game. I made sort of look, if I'm going to be a good Eagles fan and I want to analyze my team, I need to watch more games. And so I've tried to watch almost every single game. I think I've missed maybe 2 or 3 in 3 years. With that being said, I've never seen our defensive line this bad, not being able to stop the run. Normally, it's always the corners. Now, all of a sudden, I looked at some stats today. Our nickel corner, who was not even that good, he's rated 6th in the NFL right now.
Wow.
I mean, and then our outside cornerback in Slay is rated 4th. So they're not playing bad. The defensive line cannot get to the quarterback and is getting no pressure. And what makes me so sad is I was actually at the Panthers game when we had 3 sacks. We had 3 interceptions in one game. Yeah. We had more interceptions in one game than we have all year in that one game. And it was because we got to and I'm like, man, if our line could play as good as our corners are playing right now, all of a sudden this is a top 5 defense. And I know that's crazy to say that, but the way they played against the Panthers, an offense that was not to be shunned upon. Now they've not been good the last couple of weeks, but with that being said, it's frustrating. Their defensive scheme is out the roof. Fletcher Cox called out the coach. The coach had some some choice words to respond. He basically said, I agree with Cox. And I'm like, the fact that he said I agree with Cox is concerning because it means that he knows that he's not doing a good job of coaching. Now, I'm glad he said I agree with Cox, but at the same time, by saying I agree with Cox, you basically just admitted, and he could be rude and say oh, I don't agree with Cox. He needs to stay in his lane. But the reality is Cox is a veteran and has been through now 3 defensive schemes in his tenure. I think he was back in the Juan Castillo days. Oh, that was painful. No. That Juan Castillo was an offensive lineman? No, that was such a mess. Oh my gosh. Offensive coach turned defensive coordinator. Worst mistake ever. But Jonathan Gannon is up there with some of the worst defensive coordinators we've had. I was not a big Schwartz fan towards his end of his tenure. but I would kill to have Schwartz back right now, which is crazy to say that because Schwartz just couldn't develop a cornerback to save his life, and he played zone all the time, and the truth is, Slay loves playing man. Slay plays best in man. We have the corners now to play well in man, and we're just not. And I could go on for hours. But anyways, Derek Carr's a good QB, and the Eagles aren't good right now. And they won't be good if they don't start coaching better and being more disciplined as a football team. And establishing some sort of a game script. Like, maybe run the ball 20 times a game. No one's going to fault you if you get 2 yards a carry and you get 40 yards rushing, but they're not even running the ball 15 times a game. And they're not even running the ball 5 times a game.
That's because they get down so.
Well, but that's the thing is it's the classic Cowboys situation. Where a couple of years ago, it was like the Cowboys would be down and they wouldn't run the ball. But then you look at these teams that historically been down sometimes 2 scores and they say, you know what, we're going to run the ball. And they run the ball and they win the game. Because if you can control the clock and you control the game script, it doesn't matter if you're down by 2 touchdowns. You wear the defense out and you don't give the offense. You put a lot of pressure on your opposing team's offense to make every play count, because otherwise you may not see the ball for 10 more minutes.
Yeah.
So anyways,
this is a
lot.
Lakers, by the way. It's a weird hat, like it's LA, but then it has this like little Lakers thing in between, so it's pretty cool. But that's a good point. I mean, you guys get down early, and that's the problem with you guys. I feel like earlier on in the game it was good, and then you guys just like fall apart, kind of like the 49ers bad teams do. But the one thing that I have to say with you guys is you guys still have the luxury of being a rebuilding team. This is a first year. So your team, a lot of people expected them to not be great. Okay.
But there were expectations. And I think that on the other hand,
49ers, there were expectations of playoffs, and there probably won't be a playoffs this season for the 49ers. I mean, do you have anything else to say on that, or?
No, I jabbered way too long about the Eagles. I'm sorry. We probably have to.
That's fine.
No, I don't have much to say. I agree with you. There weren't a lot of expectations, but I believe every player sets expectations for themselves, and I think the Eagles are disappointing themselves, if anything.
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous how quickly Eagles fans go, we could be good. And I'm like, yeah, guys, we were going into the year not thinking we would win 4 games. Like let's lower our expectations again. But it seems like what happened is we beat the Falcons, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, could we actually make the playoffs? And as an Eagles fan, I was excited, but I also was realistic, going, okay, guys, hold on a second. The Falcons are not a good team, like
at all.
So, oh my gosh, and so I don't care what Younghoe Koo bails them out, but we could go for hours talking about the Eagles. But the bottom line is, those expectations were low, and Sirianni's not a good coach right now. I don't care what anyone says. Like, if he doesn't turn it around, I want to give, and I'm part of the group that says, and I know I said I wouldn't say anymore, but I'm part of the group that says, give Sirianni 1 more year, give Hurts 1 more year.
Oh, absolutely. You can't fire a dude in his first year. I mean,
give Hurts
every
1 more
coach.
Give Hurts 1 more year. And the reason why I say this is because, and the reason why, this is why.
There's not that many quarterbacks coming into this.
Yes, and if you force drafting a quarterback, I don't like Howell from.
Maybe because here's the thing. There's a guy from Alabama that I think is a freshman. His name is Bryant Young. He's going to go to the draft in like 2 years. Yeah. If you guys can wait for him.
This is my opinion. And this is my opinion real quick. Spitfire. The Eagles should give Hurts 1 more year, make him and Minshew battle it out. I don't care. Battle those 2 guys out. But this is what I want to see. We have 3 first-round picks next year, most likely. And I think we'll get that 3rd first-round pick from the Colts if Wentz stays healthy. And I think he'll at least play 70% of the snaps, and they may make the playoffs, or 75% and they won't. But anyways, with that being said,
you guys are going to have loads of
draft. Picks. Yeah, but this is the thing. Draft 3 starters. And if next year you're like, Hurts isn't our guy, you can trade the next 2 years of first-round picks, but don't blow all 3 first-round picks on going to get a guy like Watson, Rodgers, or Wilson. I think if it was Wilson, I'd have to change my mind. I think Wilson would.
If it were, even Deshaun, if all of this clears up, because Deshaun's younger than Wilson.
He's younger, and Deshaun's a better quarterback than Wilson, in my opinion. But the reality is this: I don't like all that media attention. And we say if it all clears up, but what happens to the 21 court cases? Like, are they all lies?
It's never clearing up. That's a good point.
No, it's a similar situation with Ben Roethlisberger. Like, Roethlisberger had one incident of a very, very, very bad incident that that now no one talks about. But Deshaun Watson, how can you not talk about that? So for me, I'm like out on Deshaun Watson. I know a lot of Eagles fans are like, I don't care. I do care. Aaron Rodgers, I'd love to see him finish his career as an Eagles player, but I'm not giving up 3 first-round picks, and he's a free agent next year. But still, and then Wilson is potentially going to want to trade, but they're not going to let him go easily. I don't want either of those 2 quarterbacks. I just think too much is going to have to be given up, and neither of those quarterbacks have done anything. They've had good offenses. So I know they're good. I know they're great, and they're a lot better than Hurts, but I'd rather roll with Hurts for one more year after this year and get a good – and even if you net the number 1 pick next year, you get the number 1 quarterback. Or if you net the number 4th pick in the 2023 draft, you trade maybe a first-round pick and a player to move down to pick 2 or 1. So, yeah, I think you got to wait. You can't – I know Eagles fans don't want to do this.
This draft, like, unless we get into it, I haven't seen, like, I follow college football. I have
Spencer Rattler's out now.
Oh, he has been doing god-awful.
He's probably bad. He's probably transferring, so he's probably not going to declare for the draft this year. He's probably going to play
he's definitely not.
You got Howell.
And in a few years, the future is bright for the QB draft, but not right now.
Sam Howell is from NC the Tar Heels?
NC State.
No, not NC State, the Tar Heels. UNC.
Okay.
Yeah. Howell, and I just don't know. I've not really been super impressed with any ACC quarterbacks. SEC quarterbacks, sorry.
Georgia, they might have a good one. I'm not sure.
I don't know. They've got a great defense. But anyways, that's enough talking about the Eagles. But yes, I'm not. I know there's a lot of. It's very opinionated in the Eagles camp what we do. So yeah, going on.
So I'm going to rant a little bit on the 49ers. Can we just say that Jimmy Garoppolo's days, Jimmy Garoppolo's days of a top 20 QB are over. He's done. He absolutely sucked. His stat line was 2 picks. There was 1 pick where he threw it to Deebo Samuel and Mohamed Sanu was wide open downfield. Could have been a wide open touchdown. It was his first pick that he threw. Yep. The pass interference penalties, that was another thing. 100 yards in pass interference penalties. Yards. That is like a whole field worth of pass interference penalties. That's awful. Okay. Every time. Basically every time Carson Wentz threw it downfield, it was a PI. And the thing was, and we just couldn't. Jimmy Garoppolo holds the offense back. I have no idea why Kyle Shanahan named him the starter for the Chicago Bears game in his press conference. But this team was awful defensively. Offensively, they couldn't get anything done. It was in the rain, but still, your defense was dang awful. And Jimmy Garoppolo can't throw it past 5 yards. Okay, with Carson Wentz, when you're throwing it past 5 yards, okay. You're like, okay, this is going to be good because he's a talented thrower, okay? And he ripped us. Yeah. Jimmy Garoppolo throwing it past 5 yards, you were like, oh, crap, don't be an interception.
Well, and that – the bottom line is what I don't understand, and I'll keep it short on this. If this was a team that was playing for the first-round pick, I would say, okay, I understand. Jimmy Garoppolo's not a good quarterback. I think they wanted –
yeah, but they're wasting Trey Lance.
Because I think this is the deal. I think they wanted to sit Trey Lance for a year, and I think it would do him well. But they're so bad right now. The thing is this. They don't want to go into a rebuild mode, but if they don't make the playoffs this year, they are going into a rebuild mode. So
and they're – okay, after this performance, I honestly personally think that Kyle Shanahan might be getting fired next year, so –
I think what's going to happen is this. I think we're going to see a very similar situation to the Lakers because Kyle Shanahan, you've got to remember, did bring them to the Super Bowl. And the reality is this. I think you're going to see a potential situation where they meet with the general manager and the owner, and they could offer a similar situation the Ravens offered John Harbaugh, which was you've got a young quarterback, give it one more year. Because you got to remember, John Harbaugh, they were going to mutually part ways the year that Lamar came in and made it to the playoffs. They had agreed to mutually part ways. They restructured the contracts, and now I think he's with them for the next long time. And so I would say they're going to have that conversation, but something's going on internally because someone either upstairs or in the coaching office or a general manager doesn't want Trevor Lawrence to Trey Lance to play, and one of those three guys, coach, general manager, or owner, either was against the pick and allowed it to happen, or wanted the pick and is now battling the person in charge to happen. And I don't know what's going on, but something doesn't make sense, because if they were all in unity, then I think they all would have pulled the plug on Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah,
but I think whoever's calling the shot,
Kyle Shanahan. He has a lot of power.
Or is it John Lynch? And this is the question. Is it John Lynch who decided, hey, I didn't want I personally think it is Kyle Shanahan, because I don't think he wanted Trey Lance. I still think he wanted Mac Jones.
He didn't. It's proving it right now that he's literally not giving Trey Lance two games to develop.
I think he got trumped. I think it's a similar Doug Peterson situation where the general manager and the owner said, no, you're drafting Trey Lance.
And then they're booking it the whole season. They're just mailing
and it's gonna book
in.
it. Yeah. Which is terrible, because they've got a lot of star defensive players and offensive players. If they don't win this year and they don't go big or go home, they're going to have to make some really tough choices.
Another thing is, like, it's not like, I mean, I guess his play calling, Kyle Shanahan's play calling, I think this is a big coach issue, because I don't think Kyle Shanahan's play calling is necessarily different to where it was that season when he was a genius. I just think the league has caught up to him. I think they realize not over the middle, and that's why he needs a different quarterback like Trey Lance, because then you can add that downfield element that never really was in his offense. And I mean, you literally have Jimmy Garoppolo who's playing like a rookie out there, and he's a 9-year guy. So
let's flip the script real quick. Jesse Naylor, I think that was your last show. So
yes.
He was saying, look, when the going's bad, everyone starts complaining, and the truth is that's the reality of it. If they won all these games against bad Garoppolo play, no one would be calling for Garoppolo's head. I don't entirely know what's going on with the 49ers. I just know one thing.
That's a good point.
There's got to be disagreements in that room, because if there wasn't disagreements, I don't see how you can continue to start Garoppolo. Like, this is a perfect opportunity for Trey Lance to come in. But I think this is what I think they're fearful of, and I think this could be why Shanahan doesn't want to start Trey Lance, because he's fearful of every quarterback has growing pains. He's fearful of the Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, and Zach Wilson effect, where it's like, okay, they shine brightly at moments, but they're also rookies. And I think he's afraid that Trey Lance is not going to give him short-term the best opportunity to win. Long-term, he knows it's the best opportunity to win. But my thoughts is he thinks Trey Lance isn't going to get me to the playoffs, and he's trying to rely on your guys' defense to cover up Garoppolo's issues.
Problem is we have a terrible secondary. And our defense.
Yeah, but did you have that good secondary when you went to the Super Bowl, or was it your defensive line?
It was covered? Maybe a little bit. It was our defensive line was way better. I mean, you got to think DeForest Buckner.
Solomon Thomas.
I mean, our secondary, I think, was slightly better, because at this point you've got Josh Norman committing 3 pass interference penalties a game. I mean, he's absolutely awful. And you've got Emmanuel Mosley, who's about the same. Well, you've got Emmanuel Mosley, who's about the only bright spot on your defense.
It is a hot pile of doo-doo.
It definitely is.
Yeah,
and let's see. So do you want to quickly get to the news on Jimmy Garoppolo that you wanted to?
Let's do that. I saw that. I was like, oh my word, that's some hot stuff.
So I did go back and listen to the interview with Martellus Bennett. And he basically said, okay, I'll pull it up here. Here it is. Here, I'm going to quickly share it. I'm sharing the screen. So we should be good. Hold on.
Yeah, it's a little small. It's small.
Okay, so I'll read it out. Basically, Martellus Bennett went on the McCourty Twins podcast, and I watched it all. And he basically said that you cannot win with here's what he said. He decided not to play right before a game, being a B word about it. You can't win without a B word for a quarterback. That was the whole thing with him. So basically, Martellus Bennett comes out and says, Jimmy Garoppolo, one game, listened to the podcast, one game, Tom Brady was out. He was suspended for 2 games, and it was Jimmy Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett. And Jimmy Garoppolo was going to start, and right before game day, I think it was like the night before game day, or even suiting up, he decided not to play because he had a sore knee or whatever, something like that. And Jacoby Brissett, with a third-string guy with like a bad thumb, goes in. Martellus Bennett went on to say that Jacoby Brissett played his heart out that game, but he basically said you can't win with people like Jimmy Garoppolo. And I was like, okay,
I think
last year it makes perfect sense. Last year with the ankle injury, our season was over. But the last few games against the Seahawks, Cardinals, he could have came back, but he just decided not to.
Well, and let's put it in real quick perspective. And I know we could go off on a tangent here, but the going was good between Brady and Belichick. They were winning games. No one complained. The moment they start losing games, now all of a sudden this stuff comes out about Garoppolo, where Belichick wanted Garoppolo. The reality is this. I think Belichick wanted Garoppolo, and this is a hot take. I think Belichick wanted Garoppolo because Belichick could tell Garoppolo what to do, because Garoppolo is not a born leader. Yeah. I think Brady's a born leader, and the only reason why they got along between Belichick and Brady is because they were winning games. They won the Super Bowl. They won many Super Bowls. And so the moment they start, not doing as well, now all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm going to go to Kraft and complain because I don't want Garoppolo taking my position. But the reality is a good quarterback goes out, and this is why I think Aaron Rodgers still to me is one of the greatest. A good quarterback says, you're bringing in competition. Sorry, that competition's going to have to wait until I tear my ACL because they're not going to ever beat me out. Rodgers has an MVP season last year. Brady comes out and he leads his team to the Super Bowl, right? Then on top of that, he not only does lead his team to Super Bowl, he goes to Tampa now, and he's doing great. Both Wentz and Garoppolo, they bring in a young quarterback, their play gets worse. Yeah. I think Wentz is a great quarterback, but I think both of those guys, I like Wentz way more than Garoppolo. I'm a huge Wentz fan. So
Wentz,
but
Garoppolo never in his dreams would be an MVP.
Well, that's the thing is Wentz is extremely athletic, and he's actually more athletic.
We saw it the other night. Here's the thing that you can't use the rain as an excuse against the Colts because what was Carson Wentz doing?
Yeah, he was launching. Well, and he's got a cannon
after 45 after 45-yard dime.
I think the reason why Wentz is way better than Garoppolo is because, yes, they may not both be the greatest, discipline. Well, I'm take that back because Wentz is disciplined. Wentz was
different.
But mentally, I think Wentz is was not tough enough to lift in Philadelphia. It's also hard to play QB in Philadelphia because you have to be mentally tough and have thick skin. And that's every city, but especially Philly. I think Garoppolo just isn't a born leader. And I think now Trey Lance comes in, and I think, honestly, Garoppolo's made enough money. He couldn't care less. I mean, heck, if you didn't care about football that much, he's made millions of dollars. He's set.
I know. He's set, And
honestly, he probably someone will probably give him an opportunity in the future to be a quarterback's coach.
Steelers, that's a team that a lot of people have been mocking.
And a quarterback's coach. I mean, he could retire now and probably get a job in the next couple of years. So
probably. And the thing, and I mean, he's not terrible, but the thing is, I wasn't really surprised because all the signs were showing that he kind of, he's not. Yeah, I don't know. It's
he played well enough to get them to a Super Bowl. The defense really helped him along there. I think he played good. The moment the defense didn't start going good, that's when a good quarterback shows up. He didn't show up.
Jared Goff too. Jared Goff is the same way.
Well, now it's like, holy crap! Everyone who's saying Wentz was the lesser of those three QBs. I know Garoppolo wasn't drafted in the same draft, but if a lot of people held those QBs up, and a lot of people are going Goff, Garoppolo, Wentz. Especially after the Wentz injury. No, not only after the Wentz injury, because before the injury he was insane. And now look, Wentz is outplaying all three of those, and he's in a great situation. And honestly, Wentz is probably in one of the better offenses. Then again, you could argue that 49ers offense has some potential. So
it does, but that's another thing with it.
That's a hot topic.
That's another thing is Kyle Shanahan. That's why I'm like, at the end of the day, Kyle Shanahan hasn't been utilizing Brandon Ayuk. Now, the thing that I will say about Kyle Shanahan is Mohamed Sanu downfield yesterday. Look back, it was his first interception, Jimmy Garoppolo's. Wide open. There was nothing wrong with that play call. It's just Jimmy Garoppolo didn't hit Mohamed Sanu downfield for a touchdown because it
Yeah.
was too far downfield.
So
He missed that
for
break
whatever reason,
completely.
Ayuk is in the doghouse, and
I
I
have
don't
no.
know.
Well, and it's not like he's not running. I don't know. It's really
I don't watch enough
weird.
49ers football. I just know that he's an
He's
extremely
running
athletic,
routes.
talented
It's just
first
like
round
he's
pick.
not getting it thrown to him. So he is
Well,
an
and
extreme talent, though.
you've got to understand that draft. Everyone, there's so much pressure on those receivers. Rager would not have been a first round pick in any draft.
And I
However,
don't know why you guys picked him.
yeah, but this is the bottom line: is both Ayuk and Rager have to live up to the Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, and you could probably throw. I mean, I can't even believe this. Wait, am I saying this? Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Judy, Ruggs.
I know.
So
it is,
now the trick is Jefferson is top. Chenault, but Jefferson is top. CeeDee Lamb is second. Judy, when he was healthy, I mean, the dude runs routes like nobody's business. But those three, you're in the same draft class as those guys. There's going to be a spotlight on you. I mean, Ruggs has even people said disappointed, and Ruggs is just an extremely talented player.
Ruggs is actually really good. He's been playing decent for the Rangers.
He just can't. It's injuries have been an issue for him, but
yeah,
and that was always been an issue. I mean, heck, the dude almost had to have his leg amputated because a trailer backed into his knee and hit a nerve, and this was like literally last year.
Really?
I don't know if you knew. Yeah. Look up the Ruggs injury. For anyone who wants a story he was like backing up a trailer, and then trailer hit an artery in his knee. And if it had like severed it anymore, he would have had his whole leg amputated before he even played a snap in the NFL. It was so weird.
What the?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
So
I mean, things like that happen.
That was a massive tangent. Feel bad but I'm glad that he's back and he's playing good football, and it looks like him and Derek Carr are building a good rapport with each other. But yeah. No, dude. Both of our teams are dumpster fire. I expected us to be not great. 49ers, that was a big shock. But, yeah.
It was. I mean, a combination of injuries. I think very bad coaching, not calling up the right plays, not giving your rookie quarterback a chance, or any of your rookies. I mean, why the heck are you playing Josh Norman over Demonjor Lenore when Josh Norman basically at this point is going to retire next year?
Well, he's a veteran, so I get that, and I get that he's a veteran. But at the same time, I think it goes back.
Season is already like.
Well, but that's the thing. They don't want to admit that. And that's why they're starting Garoppolo. That's why they're starting Norman, because they don't want to take the chance that Lance is going to struggle, Lenore is going to struggle, and your rookies are going to struggle because they still think that they can make the playoffs. I think at some point they've got to come to reality that, hey, this is not the season we thought it was going to be. Let's give these rookies 6 or so games to at least evaluate whether or not we need to bring someone else in. Now, obviously, Trey Lance is not getting competition, but when it comes to like corners and stuff, how can you evaluate your rookie corners? So, and third round picks rarely ever become starters when it comes to corners. You hit occasionally the really good corner, but if you take a poll of all the corners that do well, most of them are starters.
Well, another thing for the 49ers, like sorry for cutting you off.
No,
the
last
good. 2 years have not been good drafts at all. Like, I'm looking
at
it.
They've not had many picks.
I mean, last year, Trey Lance, work in progress, whatever. Aaron Banks, not starting. Trey Sermon barely has gotten any carries. I mean, he's looked good when he has, but just not getting a chance because I don't think he fits the system, right?
But is that a coaching problem or is that a draft?
It's a coaching problem. I think it's a coaching problem. Aaron Banks, though, does not look good. But Trey Sermon looks fine. It's just he's built in the shotgun system where he's not an under center running back. He's not meant to run up. He's not a one cut type of guy like Raheem Mostert is. He's a run between the tackles type of guy, and that's not the 49ers offense. So I think that was a general manager pick. But so if you look at it, Trey Sermon, and then you have Ambry Thomas he was getting burnt daily in camp, I was hearing. So that's the first draft. Last year's draft, you have Javon Kinlaw, always injured. You have who is it? Who did we draft in the second round? We didn't have a second round pick. That's right.
Yeah, you had no pick.
We had one like in the fourth round, so like not great. And then I remember none of our fourth round picks were very good.
Well, and fourth round picks are supposed to be.
The last draft that we hit on 2 players was the 2019 with Nick Bosa and Deebo Samuel.
Yep.
That was the last draft.
Going back to the Eagles drafts, I mean, who would have ever thought Jordan Mailata, a hell of a project out of Australia, becomes one of our best draft picks in the last 2 or 3 years. Like, it just doesn't make sense. So I'm not saying you can't hit in the 6th, 7th round, But the reality is, when you whiff on first and second round picks, everyone looks at that. And both the Eagles and the 49ers have. Because the truth is, there's first and second round picks that have been way better than both of those teams have drafted. I mean, of course, everyone's going to say we could have had Justin Jefferson. I don't want to be reminded of that. We also could have had DK Metcalf. I know other teams could have too, but
we could have had DK Metcalf.
So Terry McLaurin's another one we passed up on.
Of course, 49ers did too. They could have gotten him with Jalen Hurts.
We drafted Jordan Matthews ahead of Devontae Adams. So Jordan Matthews ahead of Devontae Adams, I don't think he'll ever live down. But, a lot of those guys are products of good quarterbacks too. I'm not saying they're not talented, but a good quarterback can make you look a lot better. Now, I think Devontae Adams is a hell of a player, and I think also DK Metcalf is too. But yes, it takes a good functioning offense to make a player look good. I say this before. I think Brady's a great quarterback, but he also landed up in a great situation. A great situation in Tampa. Doty with the hot take. J-Jaw, the best pick of all time. J-Jaw is officially the best Eagles pick. My grandmother, who is no longer alive, probably could have picked better from the grave. So I rest in peace, her soul. But yeah, that's just a mess. It's a mess and a half. But anyways, we probably could spend another 2 hours talking about how terrible both of our teams are. But unfortunately,
I'm ready. And I don't think it's all the 49ers picks. I just think our coach is just.
It's a mixture of things. When the going is good, coaching problems can be masked. The Eagles finally had one bad season with Reed. And so all of a sudden, 4-12, it was like, Reed, there you go. And I think it's a combination of Reed couldn't get them past the championship round. All of a sudden, Reed goes to the Chiefs, and you raise that stat like they haven't been blown out this bad since 2016. Reed's gone to 3 straight championships, 2 Super Bowls, won one. You take the last 5 years of Reed's career, he's a Hall of Fame coach in just those 5 years, disregarding all of the years with the Eagles. He was good. So, but when the going's bad, all of a sudden it's like, is it Reed? And I don't think Reed will really ever get the blame at Kansas City because of how good of a coach he is. And he brought Kansas City their first Super Bowl in 50 years. And he won his first ever Super Bowl as a coach, as a head coach. So it's a hard one. Yes, I agree. Shanahan's not coaching well. Is it one of the situations where the general manager or the owner is putting pressure? Because I know for a fact, I don't think Doug Peterson was a good coach, great coach.
Yeah.
He won us a Super Bowl. I'm forever indebted to Doug. I don't think he's as bad of a coach as everyone made him out to be. There was a lot of issues that came out once he got fired about potentially Howie Roseman saying that Peterson wanted a little bit more control and Roseman and Lurie wouldn't give him. So we just don't know. The media will say one thing because it makes a fuzzy story and it makes a good story that sells. But I think there's more to it than just he's not coaching well. I think there's a reason why Lance hasn't been started, and whether it's a disagreement or whatever. I mean, you can't deny Mac Jones as being a very accurate quarterback as a rookie. And he's actually, I think, on pace potentially still to break the rookie completion record, I think. So percentage.
Yeah.
So, and that's where the Patriots team that I don't even, that's another story for another day. I don't even know where they're at right now. So
yeah. Well, yeah. So, that's a good point. And Kyle Shanahan, good luck to you. Just do better. Don't look like a. Don't look in the press conferences like this. It's really weird, man. You're giving us all a bad look. You're giving 49ers. I mean, hey, it could be that the league is just caught up to him. I don't want to think of that. I don't think any 49ers.
I think there's multiple things going on in that organization.
I don't know. I think And if I were Jed York, I mean, what was the last time when history looked? I mean, Jim Harbaugh. He fired them all. I mean, he fired Vic Fangio. He fired Greg.
I don't think he's afraid to do that. I
think he easily will, and so that's why I think this year is such.
And the question is, do you fire him after? I think you do. I think if you're going to make a decision, you wait until the end of the year, and you part ways with Shanahan if they're still that bad.
But his trend has been he has a good season once every few years.
Well, but Shanahan knows himself. He's got to win. They've got to win games, or his butt is on the line. So we'll see. Only time will tell.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you want to talk about this? I mean, there's one last one. Did you get it? So
We
Joe
can touch base
Burrow
on it quick. Yeah.
real
We
quickly.
can, I mean,
Yeah,
we've sort of
Joe
already
Burrow and Derek
talked
Carr
about
playing
it.
like top 5 QBs, are they? That's the
Well, I mean, yeah, I think I touched on Derek Carr in question number
yeah.
3.
We
I think.
both did basically.
Derek Carr is playing at a really good level right now and has really been for the last 3 years. And that was to my surprise when I was looking up some stats today of him. I was like, holy crap, this guy's actually been. I'm not saying he's been bad, but just the Raiders have not been a great
Yeah.
team. So, I'm always really hesitant to dub a quarterback a top 5 quarterback in their second year. It's one of the reasons why I still have a hard time doing it for Herbert. I think still when it comes to like this year, quarterbacks that are playing good, and someone was saying, oh, so how can you not say put him in your top 5 of the
Yeah.
team? And Brady's got to be in my top 5, and I'm not putting him in order. I'm saying Brady. Rodgers is still playing at a good level. Like, okay, maybe not. Maybe he doesn't crack the top 5, but you got Brady, you got Allen. You can't. Okay, you can't.
Oh,
Allen's playing great.
Absolutely.
With your third quarterback, I think when you look at it, like this year, Dak Prescott's got to be thrown into it.
Dak Prescott,
I can't
absolutely.
stand that.
Lamar
So
Jackson.
there's your 3. Lamar Jackson's been playing good, so that's 4. At my
I think
5th,
one of them. Here's the thing that I give to Derek Carr.
yeah, but that's not
he
even
was
counting.
He was in a complete dumpster fire, and now he's doing so good.
That's
and
not even counting Rodgers. Rodgers is playing at a good level. Stafford's playing at a good level. So I think if you're going to ask me, are they top 5? I'd say this. I'd say I just gave you my top 4 in no order. I'd say my 5th is Rodgers, Derek Carr, Stafford. I don't think Burrow cracks the top 5 yet just because of the situation he's in, because he's got a pretty good offense. I think he's a top 7 quarterback. But I also just listed off 3 quarterbacks for top 5. So if you take those 3 quarterbacks for top 5 and then you add a Burrow, all of a sudden he's actually the 8th. So I think I've listed off my top 8 quarterbacks right now. But Derek Carr and Joe Burrow are fringe top 5 quarterbacks, top 10 teams. There you go.
Top 10. I would say put him in the top 10. I mean, people will say, "Oh, they're top 5 level." Well,
look at the Raiders.
The thing is there's so many top 5. So you can say top 5, top 5, top 5.
Yeah,
but none of them are top. Like Justin Herbert. Like, that's another guy that, like, yeah, he got dethroned by the Ravens, but he's still, I think, playing better than Joe Burrow, even though he probably has more weapons than Joe Burrow does.
And I didn't even throw Justin Herbert. I forgot about that too. So that's another person you could throw into the top 5. But with that being said, going back to it, one of the things I look at, and I'm sort of like, is the Eagles started off 7-0. Great drive, right? I actually was pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
Then they get the interception. Now all of a sudden they have an opportunity to go up 14-0. No one would have been talking about Derek Carr. Derek Carr ekes out a win, and completely, I don't care what the score was. They only won by 11 points. They won by far more than 11 points. This game was a trash heap. After we scored that first touchdown, we couldn't do anything. But the reality is this. They're the second best team in the AFC. They're the number 2 seed if the season ended today. Bengals are number 1. Raiders are number 2. It's awesome.
Gosh.
I'm all here for it because I love the underdog story, and none of those teams anyone expected to be in the top 2. But the reality is
I didn't even put the Ravens. My predictions, playoff predictions, right before week 1. I didn't even put the Raiders in the playoffs.
Well, but okay, let's just say this. First of all, I think this new coach could be doing something for the Raiders.
Yeah.
Zach Taylor is obviously coaching his butt off because I think that they probably gave him an ultimatum. You've got a great offensive weapon with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. I mean, holy crap, Joe Mixon.
Uzama.
What the heck is Samaje Perine? Is also become relevant. And with that being said, I think really to finish off sort of my opinion on those guys, a lot of the times the perennial good teams always find a way to make to the playoffs. The Bills, the Chiefs, those 2 guys, the Ravens. I know those guys may not even be in the conversation of top 5. Well, if the season ended today, I think the Bills and the Ravens, yes. But I would say 4 more weeks. And I know that's crazy because that puts us
because the Broncos
puts us
were
at week
11
too. Well, I know that puts us at week 11. But the reality is one of the things that I said, okay, I was looking at the Bengals schedule. I was like, are they a top 5 team? Is Burrow a top 5 quarterback? I actually think they are a top 5 team. They can be. But when I started looking at their schedule, I was like, okay, hold on a second. Pump the brakes, Joseph. I think the last 3 games they have played exceptional. But I also had to be real. I said, okay, the first 4 games they played were not that great. Now, the last 3 games, they've blown out the Ravens. They've blown out the Lions, and they played a really tough game with one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, Aaron Rodgers. Is these last 3 games like their turning page? If it is their turning page, I'll know by week 11. But by week 11, if they lose 3 of the next 4 games, which they're tough games, they got I already listed it off earlier in the podcast.
Yeah.
This game's over. So, yeah, that's sort of my opinion. Lengthy, but yes.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, the thing with the Bengals, I think, last thing before we go is, I think with the Bengals, I mean, you got to give them a little bit more time to, because the Broncos started off really hot and now it's just nothing. But I think the Bengals are a lot more legit than the Broncos are. I know the Raiders are legit because the Raiders literally went through the worst crisis and
you could absolutely.
The Raiders absolutely.
The difference between those 2 teams and the Broncos is those two teams have, in my opinion, a perennial good quarterback in Carr and Burrow. Carr's already proven it. Burrow's beginning to prove it. The reason why I say let's give it some more weeks is because can they sustain that success? When the Broncos were up 3-0, in like a one,
it was like the Jets.
Giants, and I can't think of the third team. But with that being said, I did not think they were legit. When the Bengals now are 5-2, right? Yeah, 5-2. They lost against the Bears, not a good team. That was week 2. I always say, look, the first 2 weeks, weird stuff happens. Then if you take away that Bears win, they're a 5-1 team, and they lost against the Packers. No one's calling them a bad team. So let's give it some time, but I want to give it 4 more weeks for the Raiders, for the Bengals, and I even want to give 4 more weeks for the Eagles. I'm not out on their season because I don't trust the Cowboys come December. The Cowboys cannot win games in November, December. If they continue to win games, it's their division and they can have it. They've played better. But the NFC East, NFC least, I'm not sold on the Cowboys being the number. I think they're the 3rd seed right now. I mean, if someone had told me that, I think their offense is great. I think their defense, you and I both were talking about it on the phone last week, surprisingly, is all of a sudden just decided to play good football.
It is really strange. Yeah,
that's a tangent.
But they do play a really good Vikings offense this week, so could be that they get their 2nd loss.
Who?
Cowboys.
Yeah, and who knows? And they got a pretty good offense in Jefferson, and we'll see if Diggs can shut down Jefferson. I think Diggs is a product of, people still think he's not that good of a cornerback, so they're throwing to him. Diggs has also gotten some really odd interceptions. He just seems to be in the best place at the best time. I think Diggs is a great cornerback, don't get me wrong, but those 6 interceptions in 6 games, it's a little deceiving. It's a crazy NFL. The NFL season always throws us weird things. Like I said, if you had told me that David Carr and Joe Burrow and Kyler Murray would be the top 3 teams in the NFL, I would have laughed and said, you're out to lunch. But here we are. And we are an hour and a half into talking about this, but I'm still blown away at the success of those 2 teams. I knew the Cardinals were going to be good. I didn't think they would be this good. But the Raiders, dude, and the Bengals, especially the Bengals, I'm going to focus on them. My word, they have blown my mind. So, yeah. So.
Well, everybody, this has been so much fun. We've gone through. It had been a while since we had talked live. We usually try to talk on the phone every week. So, Joseph, this has been a lot of fun.
It's been great. Thank you for having me.
I think you did a better job ripping the Eagles than I did the 49ers.
I've been ripping them into my mind all week because I know we can be a better team. And I actually, as much as I just got done hyping the Raiders, I just know that the Eagles could have made this a closer game.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, Derek Carr had 2 incompletions aside from the interception. You can't win.
Oh, two. Sorry, 2.
31 to 34, right? So 32 of 34 technically. Obviously it was a completion to the wrong team, but 2 incompletions technically all game. And he's playing without Darren Waller. Dude, when Darren Waller was out, I was like, okay, we've won this game. Like, I didn't say that, but I said we have a huge chance to win. Oh my gosh.
That other tight end.
Foster Moreau looked like the coming of George Kittle. It was like, what the crap is going on here? So
yeah, it was pretty surprising. But we will see you guys later, everyone. The Eagles have a game against who?
Dude, I don't even want to talk about this. If we lose against the Lions, bro, it's a
Oh,
new low.
right. Okay.
And like,
49ers
the
have a
Lions-
game against the Bears.
Oof.
I was
Both
hoping it
of
would
us
be
are
Trey
playing
Lance
teams
versus
we should
Justin
win.
Fields, but it's not going to
Both
be.
of us are. Well, we'll see if Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt.
No,
Both
Jimmy,
of us are
he's
playing.
already been named the starter for next week.
Well, but if he gets hurt, you know.
Oh, yeah.
No, don't be wishing injuries on any player. But all I'm saying is both of our teams should be expected to win. But I swear, if we lose against the Lions, I'm gonna I'm gonna wake up Monday morning with at least 3 or 4 gray hairs, and maybe even start getting some graying in the beard I don't have. But it's bad. We can't lose against the Lions. The Lions made it hard against the Rams last week, though. So I'm like, I have no hope. Our team, I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay, we'll
God
see you
bless
guys
the
later.
Eagles.
This
See you
has been
guys later.
fun.
See ya.
Bye.
Peace.